Hello, wonderful people. Today I'm talking about Jesus and the return to Christ consciousness. Tell you all about it on the other side. So I mentioned a while ago the amount of people that I was seeing, people with voices who suddenly were talking about Jesus, talking about God and all of that, and never talked about it before, and suddenly they're all like, happy clappy about God and Jesus. What's that about? So I asked the Jesus energy that I commune with, I asked them, what's this about? This kind of people speaking out, people with voices, it's important. I mean, I heard Jordan Peterson, he was chatting on about Jesus and everything. And JCK just recently came out with a video chatting about Jesus. And it's lovely. 20 years ago, I would have been horrified. That would have been anathema to me. Now, it's like, get in. There's another one. There's another one. So I was asking the Jesus energy about this, and they said, yes, we're in this process of a return to God, a return to Christ consciousness. Now, I want to separate the Christ consciousness from Jesus Christ. Okay? Let's not get them mixed up. Christ consciousness is a frequency that we inhabit, that we come to. And it isn't linked to religion at all, which I want to get into. It isn't linked to religion. And they said, so the Jesus energy said, so what's happening is that people are returning to this Christ consciousness, the Christ to the light. The light, very important, stay in the light. And they were saying that this is creating a shift. The shift's happening. So the shift is making people return, and as people return is creating more of a shift. Okay? So I asked them, I said, right, so in this shift and this ascension and all of that, will it only be the people who return to the Christ consciousness that will ascend, will move on? And they said, yes and no. Or they said no and yes. That was the way they said it. What they said was no, because they said that many people are already there. They already have returned to Christ consciousness without even knowing, without it even being linked to anything to do with Christ or anything to do with religion or whatever. The way they live their lives is an example of Christ consciousness. That's what they said. So it isn't, I accept Christ and I'm born again and therefore that's it, I'm saved. It's, I am being Christ consciousness. I am standing in the Christed light. So that's what they were saying. It's about a way that we are, the essence of who we are. So that made me think of the book of Ra, where it was talking about if you're 51% in service to others, then you'll ascend, and if you're less than that, then you won't. So I said to them, is that true? That if you're 51% in service to others, then that's when you ascend, or you'll go with the right group? And they said, on the spiritual plane, we aren't into percentages. Okay, that's what they said. Don't bother with percentages. But they said, yes, the idea is that if your life is, on the whole, dedicated to service to others, dedicated to being in the Christ consciousness, then yes, that's going to be the case. So I said, hang on a minute then. Imagine I'm 51% Christ consciousness and I scrape in, like pretty much like I did with all of my exams, just scraping through. And then somebody's like 90% Christ consciousness. Will they be even more rewarded? And they said, no. And they reminded me of a story, and it's a story about two brothers who were born of a rich merchant. And one brother decided that he was going to take over the father's business. And although he loved God, and he he always tried to help, and he would give money to the poor and things like that. He was pretty much focused on his job and doing that job, yeah. And the other brother decided to become like an errant person who had no money and would just go off and do God's service. And so what would happen is the brother, every now and again, who was working in the business, would send his brother some money or whatever to take care of him. He knew more or less where he was, but they had no contact. Well, the other brother, he just lived a life of service. He went around and, he was preaching God's word and everything, and he had no money. And basically, in the end, he died. He was just so worn out through his work. He died early and everything. And the other brother, well, he lived a long and full life with a big family and everything. And so when the person who had given up his life to God went to heaven, he was greeted at the gates saying, "Come on in, you faithful and beautiful person. Come on in, enjoy heaven." And so he went in and enjoyed heaven, as you would, wouldn't you? And then his brother, some years later, because he had a lovely life, he died, and he came up, and the doors were opened, and they said to him, "Welcome, faithful follower of God. Come on in and enjoy heaven." And the younger brother, who had been there for a while, looked and he thought, "Wow, I spent my entire life in service to God, and he hasn't. He's just been, in the materialistic side, doing all of that. He wasn't a bad person, but he didn't do anything like I did. And yet he's got exactly the same welcome." And as he thought about it, he didn't feel bad at all, because he knew that if he were to go back and live the same life, he would do exactly the same thing again. He did what he did because of who he was, not because of what he was going to gain. And so I suppose that's the idea of what the Christ consciousness was saying, that it doesn't matter. We live in a world where there are winners and losers. We live in a world where you're an A grade student, or you're a B grade student, or a C grade student. You live in a world where you've just passed the exam, or where you've got honours. And that's just this world. The world beyond this is, have you made it or not? If you've made it, fantastic. Have you made it with honours? Fantastic. Have you just scraped through? Fantastic. You're here. And that's something that I suppose is difficult for us to get our heads around, but that's all that we need. We just need to make it. So let's step into this beautiful place of service to others and just do what comes naturally. Service to others is nothing that you have to force. If you force it, it's not service to others, it's service to self. When you're forcing it, it's to make yourself feel better. That's what you've got to be careful of. No, service to others is just doing what you feel. Doing to others as you would have them do to you. I mean, that sounds a bit service to self as well, isn't it? I'm doing it to you so that you do to me. No, you do it, and you do it because that's who you are. And I know that when I help people, I know that the universe is going to help me. That's the deal. That's the way it works. So I never have to worry about that. I don't worry about, will somebody do this to me? It doesn't matter. It's going to happen. The most important thing is that you do it to others. You help other people. That's it. Sorted. And then you're over. You're over the finish line. That's it. Good news, eh? And let me finish with just one last little conversation that I had with the Jesus Energy. And I was asking them about the fact that there are lots of people who have left organised religion and who are really angry at God. I was for a good while, and angry at Jesus and all of that, yeah. And they said, well, just think about it like this. Imagine that somebody, a really bad person, comes up to you with a baseball bat and beats the shit out of you. They didn't say that. These are my words. And beats you to a pulp. And from that day, you hate baseball bats. You hate baseball bats. You avoid them. Every time you're in the presence of a baseball bat, you get really angry. That is the same as getting angry at God for what religion's done. Religion is the baseball bat. Organised, horrible religion that makes you feel bad about yourself, makes you feel bad about God, makes you feel fearful. That's a baseball bat. But why would you get angry at God when it's religion that's beating you to a pulp? Yeah. And that's a lesson that I had to come through and learn. Finally, I got through it. And it's so much more beautiful on the other side, for God's sake. Actually having a relationship with God again, and one that where I can talk to God and it's beautiful. Man, very different place. So my baseball bat is well gone now. Well gone. It doesn't make me angry anymore. I feel sorry for the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I feel sorry for the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who are still worried about the baseball bat, who are still angry at the baseball bat. I love you all, and I'll speak to you all later. Bye-bye.